Be Decoded on the Arc City Radio. I'm Jabba, your host for the next hour. Bob is always around producing and jumping in any case we need any help. We have to say, help me God. Is that the thing?
Bob, no. Not God.
Oh, Bob. Help me, Bob. Okay,
it's an easy mistake.
We talk about re-evolution, and our guest is Mihalis Elefheriou. Thank you. How are you? Are you actually in Cyprus?
Yeah, I just come back to Cyprus.
But where you was? Just traveling around again?
No, I was in Buenos Aires for the last 8 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I've just come back.
Okay. I discovered you with the first video I saw was the one you was talking about when the Turkish revolution went up, and how you suggested to people how to look at Egypt revolution. And the way you was talking in the video, I thought you came from Egypt, and you was giving like people some advices like in Turkey how they should handle their so-called revolution.
Yeah, there was actually the first video I made. Well, I lived in Egypt. Lots of people made that mistake. They thought I was from Egypt, and I just put a status on Facebook saying it would be really cool if, I mean, I was seeing a lot of the photos of the military coming out with flags and supporting the protesters, and it all looked a little bit too familiar of Egypt. And I just put a status saying, hey, it would be really good if some friends made some videos, and I tagged some people and said, I will do it too. And then I was like, oh, okay, now I have to make a video. So I put the camera and actually it was really, really shocking, the response. The last time I checked, and that was around a month ago, around 500,000 people had seen it because it was uploaded a few times. And I got thousands and thousands of messages, and it was quite a confusing response, to be honest. I mean, why? I really wasn't expecting it, so it kind of went from there.
Okay. Well, I think the way you're talking in your video is very spontaneous and is very natural, and that is what comes through, and that is also what hit me. It's like you just say what you think, and that is I find that way very natural and very cool. And I didn't knew even that it was your first video. I saw that was not many videos on your YouTube channel.
Sorry?
And this was not many videos on your YouTube channel, so I didn't knew if there was another channel somewhere around. And the first video, I didn't knew that it was your first video that you make. And the last one I saw was the one when you was shouting on Egypt again.
I'm very frustrated about what's happening in Egypt.
Yeah. So in general, you're observing the so-called revolutions a little bit around the world. And can you just give a little bit your let's say your general impression of from the Arab Spring to the others so-called revolution that happened until maybe from Tunisia to today, what's happening now?
Well, I think that revolution is the best word, because if we analyze the word, it comes from revolve, and it's exactly what we're doing, which is why I like you to drop the R and stress that what we need is evolution, because we're kind of looking within the same paradigm, shifting things in the same paradigm, rather than stepping out of the circle and looking at the game, rather than how to play it. And my general impression is that, I mean, we as a region, and I include Cyprus, we're quite immature in many senses, and it's to be expected when you have such a colonial history. I mean, in Cyprus, for example, we were a British colony.
Maybe can you explain a little, just in short, maybe what is going on? Yeah.
I mean, in Cyprus was a colony until 1960, and the regions were, all of the countries in the region have this recent history of colonization. So civil society is really not generally involved. We also have the social structure, which is very authoritarian, the family structure and the social structure, which kind of makes us much more prone to accepting authority, looking at the government as authority, and seeing, rather than looking at the government as, hey, we pay you, you're there to make our lives easier. We kind of are looking in this sense of, okay, if we behave better, if we do this, if we do that, we will get more. Does that make sense? Like, I'm finding it difficult to explain this. I think that we can't look at anything in isolation. We have to look at the social and cultural context as well. And I think what we're most showing, and especially in Egypt, is our immaturity right now. And that's okay, because it's a process. It's not an event. It's a process we have to go through and we have to learn. And in one of the videos to Turkey, I was speaking about this being a way of life. And what I definitely didn't mean is, just this constant uprising just being a way of life in the sense of the anarchy and the streets. What I meant by we have to make this a way of life is educating ourselves and educating each other. Without this, I fear that we're going to be this reactionary mob for a very long time, and that's what we're seeing in Egypt right now. I mean, Egypt has been in this process now for 2.5 years, and they are still extremely easy to manipulate. I mean, we also what happened when in this what is being called the coup-volution, where no one can decide whether it's a coup or a revolution. And I mean, when we were demonstrating, and I lived in Egypt, and I was there during the beginning as well of the uprising. I mean, we had the army and SCAF after 2 years after Mubarak stepped down, doing everything to destabilize the country and increase their mandate. And people tend to forget that Mubarak and the last 2 presidents before him were from the military, so there's very little difference there. Mubarak was just cutting the head to save the pyramid. Anyway, so like SCAF imprisoned over 30,000 activists during these 2 years. There was a huge amount of violence that we saw, torture, deaths, etc. And then suddenly we had this common enemy image, which was the Muslim Brotherhood, and suddenly everybody is defending the military, and it's incredible. It's like having a memory of a goldfish. And this is what I'm really frustrated about in Egypt, and the voices that are saying this are very few. The most essential point is that it doesn't matter who the state is killing. If the state is killing, then we have a problem. There is no revolution if the state is killing. And whilst people sit around and it's like, oh, it's okay, it's the Muslim Brotherhood and they must have done something and they must be terrorists. I mean, we're in a very dangerous place. The politics is still very reactionary, and
what do you think about how much the revolutions was really from the people, and how much was the revolution produced by America or other?
I believe that what happened in Egypt was a spontaneous uprising, but of course there is a lot of questions and doubts and the whys to have about other powers orchestrating things. Now, what we know is whatever you do, whether it's a spontaneous uprising or not, external powers are going to get involved. It's the Middle East. They're always going to be looking to take advantage and to play their hand the way they can. Now, I don't think it's so useful to be looking at that rather than looking at what we're actually doing. I mean, there is a lot of debate about who's behind this thing, and especially in other countries in the region like Syria. But I believe what happened in Egypt was a spontaneous uprising. But what I believe happened in Egypt is that people were told they had a revolution before they had one, so they could be robbed of it before they could be. I mean, there were 11 days in Tahrir. Mubarak stepped down or was forced down, and it was like, okay, go home now. And there were a lot of people that thought that was it. And that's a very immature way of looking at things, but it's totally to be expected. I mean, you have a police state for the last 30 years. You don't have any civil involvement. people don't have any experience to call on. So it's really natural what's happened. So whilst I'm really critical of this, which I think it's important to be, at the same time, I understand why this is, but we need to be self-critical without the ego, which is abundant during these processes, everybody defending their corner, rather than looking at considering a different system where we don't have a corner to defend, where we're looking at cooperation and not competition, where we're not in a constant power struggle. And this is the mentality we're still in. We're still in a mentality of this power struggle. How much, I was in Tahrir Square when all of this began, and it was incredible to feel the connection and the solidarity between the people. It was really incredible. I mean, you was in Tahrir, you had all of these divided parts of society suddenly together, feeding each other, building toilets and showers together, giving out blankets and tents, and everybody working together. And then 1 year later, everybody was in Tahrir with their own corner, fighting for their candidate and saying they will not steal our revolution. In the same way, you see many, in some of the videos that some people made, they made appeals in the video to the free people of the world, which I found really interesting. They were addressing people of the so-called first world, the so-called free people of the world, saying pretty much, we want what you have. And it's very, very, very far from what we need to do. The first thing we need to acknowledge is that we don't have democracy anywhere or nearly anywhere, because in this system where everything is based on a power struggle, when we have a system based on competition and not cooperation, we're never going to be in a stage where we can really achieve something different for humanity. I mean, it's just like a revolving cycle. And this is why I think that the word revolution is actually a perfect word to describe what we're doing, and what we need to do is something more.
I called like what happened with these different revolutions around the world. I call that like as the first awakening. That they see that like something is not going good. Most of the time they just switch. If they are voting left, they're gonna vote right, or Democrats or Republicans. And the revolution. One good thing is a lot of people start to question fundamentally things. And but interesting point of protest is. I learned that yesterday. Protest in legalese. You know what is legalese? Like the law language. Means protest means you agree, even if you don't really find it cool, but you agree. That is the meaning of protest in legalese. So anytime you do a protest, and I found that out on when everybody was in the street against the war in Iraq, everybody was in the streets for that or against that war instead of peace already. But I knew that something is like happening. It's like we give them like the power that they can that they can make the war, that they can go to war, because even in 2003 the people remember 9/11, but they didn't saw the necessity to really go to Iraq, even with this false flag weapon of mass destruction, the same shit that they do now in Syria. And nobody knew that they had to go to war. And as soon as Bush said that they want to go to Iraq to war, everybody was in the streets, and that give like it's the protest means like the people agree with what you're doing.
I think the concept is interesting because whilst we're deciding to get involved in these arguments, at the same time we're kind of affirming the system that we're in. And so,
exactly.
I mean, I'm finding it very hard to put into words what I mean, and I think there's a very easy way to look at it. Imagine you're an alien, you come to planet Earth, and you'll have a look, and you say, okay, this is what they have. These are the materials that they have, not money, because this is fictional. This is the materials that they have, and this is what they know how to do. This is the technology, and this is the science that they have, and this is how they organize themselves. I mean, you would go back to your home planet with the best joke you could possibly tell. The point is that we need to step right out of the circle. I mean, this mentality of you or me, it had a relevance at some point, you know, and there's something beautiful in it. This is how evolution works. This is how nature works, the survival of the fittest, etc. But there was one global mentality which made sense, which made this make sense. And this one global mentality was the mentality that's caused by scarcity. Now, we've lived in scarcity for all of human history, with some exceptions in some pockets and smaller communities around the world. And this mentality of scarcity is what has led us to where we are today. But now we have the technology, the resources, and the knowledge that scarcity doesn't really exist anymore. But we have that mentality still. So we have the resources to destroy, to consume faster than what we ever had before, and using a fraction of this, of what we're using today, to live so badly, everybody on the planet could live really, really, really well, cooperating in security. But we will never see this whilst we're arguing within this monetary paradigm, whilst we're arguing within this paradigm of power structures, of nationalism. So it's really, really a mentality shift what we need. And what we really need is an emotional evolution. We need to understand that our realities today are not conducive to this system which arose with a fundamental underlying mentality of scarcity, which no longer exists. And today we're creating the scarcity with our behavior, with the monetary system.
Yeah, it's very well said. I definitely also think that resource-based society would definitely work with no problems, and we would solve a lot of different problems, from education and child trauma, or even adult traumas to like you say, in the scarcity. I found a translation of evolution that lution is a liquid and evo is life. So it would be like a living liquid, and the re would make like using the same liquid. But that is my theory. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, what I observed is that everything is water, and therefore, if you make water move, it will change. And what a lot of people do is repeating water they receive. That means words or pictures what they receive in the past, and they repeat instead to discover themselves. And therefore, we have like still water and we have moving water, and I think it's very important to have new ideas, and that also that we take responsibility about what is really going on the planet. And a lot of people say, yeah, this is like that, this is like this. I think, of course, the first change we only can start with ourselves, but by changing ourselves, we change the whole world.
It's very natural what's happening. And this is, I mean, we have a very interesting system in the fact that, for one part, we are promoting a certain behavior, and this behavior which scarcity brings about, for us to behave like little animals and to consume and to collect and to not cooperate and be too competitive and to form our groups. And I mean, all of this, we have a system which promotes all of this, and at the same time we have the system saying that it's wrong, even though of course this is totally hypocritical, because all of the power structures, as we know, I mean, our governments are completely taken over by mafias at the moment, and there is no other way to put it. They are mafias. But all of this is completely natural within the context that we're working in, because with the monetary system that we have, which is completely based on scarcity, anybody that studied anything about the monetary system, and there's a lot of free information and documentaries about this online, we can see that money is created from nothing. It's created from debt. Money produces money. It produces interest. And as money is created from debt, and I mean, when you put $10 on the table and you sit there and watch it, that $10 is creating more money, but it's actually creating more debt, because all of that comes from debt. So this creates a system in which we have to fight. It's like a game of musical chairs. One of the chairs is pulled away and you have to sit down so you're not left standing. So all of the corruption, all of the mafias, all of the concentration of power and all of this immoral behavior is completely natural within the system that we've created. So rather than looking at this system and, for example, I think Palestine and Israel is a wonderful example. We can all see what Israel is doing is totally wrong, that it's terrible. But at the same time, rather than reacting to this with how bad it is, talking about how bad it is, what this state is doing and what these people are doing, looking at the indoctrination that people receive to continue in this cycle of aggression and hatred. And this indoctrination, for example, this indoctrination looking at such a specific concept, context like Israel and Palestine, we can apply it to the whole planet with just the way we manage ourselves economically and with resources. We're in a system which says we have to compete, that says some people will be without, that says it's me or you. This is a system that we're living within. And then we seem to be surprised when people behave badly. Now, if that was what we had to do, then I put my hands up and I say I would be killing better than anybody else and I would be fighting to survive like anybody else. But the fact is that's not where we are anymore. That's not where we are anymore. With the technology that we have, with the resources that we have, we could live completely differently with a fraction of the effort that we're making now. And we're not going to get it asking from the power structure that's already there, because the power structure is based on that idea, and the power structure only has the purpose of staying in power. What we need to do, what I sincerely believe we need to do, is to ignore these power structures. We need to begin to work without them rather than expecting them to change.
Exactly. But that is also the same thing when you say that we have to fight them. If we fight them, then we accept them as enemy. And as soon as we accept them as enemy, we accept them that they exist. Therefore, what I find maybe a more appropriate expression for it is just putting light on them, expose them, and expose their, how I call it, psychopathic behavior. And that is, but as soon as we fight them, we are going also like in the same aggression principle that they have, and we will never fight. We will never be able to fight them. That is.
I mean, I noticed you're very concerned with language, which is interesting. And of course, we all use words very differently with different meanings. I mean, I totally agree with you. Some of us might use
I think that is worldwide. I observe that worldwide. I have my original language is German. I speak French and English, and I see that words are used. Words is spelling, right? And spells, magicians make spells. And therefore, when you use words in a sense that it is a reversed sense, what almost everything is in the reverse psychology, media and politician and so on, then you use words and you give power again into spells. And as long as you make spells and you don't really know what the real meaning of the word is, then you continue to make spells. And that I was thinking before, and for my lyrics, I refuse to use the word fight, even if the symbolic of the fight is like that you are engaged in something. You know, people use fight to say that they are engaged in something, but the fight is part of the world we don't want anymore. So if we use fight to make another world, we will stay in the same paradigm.
Yeah,
you with me?
I mean, this is a problem with conceptual nouns generally. You know, like we use words and we assume, especially nouns that refer to concepts. Like love is a wonderful example. We use the word and we assume everybody understands the same thing from the word. I mean, language is problematic generally. I think something interesting that you said is about the psychopathic behavior of the institutions of leadership or governance. And I think this is very, very important to understand, especially in the Middle East, for example, where we do have from our family this very patriarchal and authoritarian based system. It's really hard for people to stop depending on these structures, or to stop believing that they know more, or that they are more intelligent, or I mean, these people are suffering from as psychotic situation, because I mean, there will come a time where they realize that they can't eat their money when they've polluted. I mean, the psychosis is the idea that this money, this imaginary fictional thing, somehow protects them. And if they can destroy the planet amassing all of this money, it's okay, because as long as they're billionaires, they're going to be okay. And it's not the case. We live on a planet which is a dictatorship. Nature is a dictatorship, and we have to listen to it. Now, if you change the climate, if you pollute all of the water, if you mess with the food, with these genetically modified experiments which are going terribly, your money is not going to protect you. And only in that moment, when they realize they can't live in their money, they can't drink their money, and they can't eat it, are they going to realize that this sense of power that they have was also an illusion. And we need to realize it before they do. And this is the biggest challenge that we have, which is why I truly believe that all of this goes back to education. And that's why I do this project, which is called language transfer.
Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
it's our second.
The biggest change for me in my life was to learn languages and all the knowledge that this exposed me to. And I wanted to share this, so I made this project called Language Transfer, which offers completely free downloadable language courses. There's Spanish and Greek online so far, and English for Spanish speakers, and I'm working on Turkish and Arabic. And for me, this is the most important thing that we can do is educate ourselves and educate each other. We have a mentality and a mindset and a value system. I think this is such an important word, value system, which supports this system and which the system gave to us. We are all agents and victims of this value system. One of the best ways for me, I believe, to challenge this is learning another language, exploring the world that this opens you to, and realizing that other places have their own set of truths. And you do that enough times, and then maybe you start questioning your own set of truths. And this journey of unlearning is never ending. And I mean, this is what we really need to do. It's not going to be, I don't believe that humanity is ever going to be okay because a good person takes the power. I believe that we all need to educate ourselves to understand the world we're in, to have healthy values in life, which we don't have right now. And from there, we can start thinking about a different way to organize ourselves. Now, with 7 billion people on the planet, I'm really not sure if this is going to happen. And the argument that people often have to not get involved in activism is, do you think this is really going to work? Do you think the world is really going to change? And this, for me, is the wrong question. For me, the question is, can you sit around seeing so much stupidity and not do anything about it? I mean, what are you here for? And so I'm not, I mean, if I'm looking objectively and I look at the great task we have ahead of us and everything that would need to be done for us to truly live and flourish as a species, living in peace, where we get over the initial obstacles of life, which is shelter and health and food, which we should be way beyond this already, and dedicate ourselves to discovering the planet and the ideas of life and energy and our universe. To get there, everything that we need to do, when I look at the state of the world, I really, really question whether it can be done, but it's not inhibiting me in any way in the work that I chose to do in my life, because the question that I come back to is this: can I sit around and be happy when there is so much unnecessary misery around? And personally, I can't.
Yeah. For me also, it's like a lot of time people say, yeah, but if you're not happy where you are, and I'm in a so-called number one country in the world, I would leave if I could, but it would not change anything, because this fucked up system or the pollution will find you anywhere you are in this world, and you can build anything what you want. One day they will come and just take you away the stuff. For me, the most dangerous announcement is that they want to control the seeds. And the second one is that they want to tax the rainwater, and that water is not anymore a human right. I mean, that should just say to anybody, take care where you are going. I'm living from rain. I drinking rainwater since 20 years. I'm living in this same house. If I have to start to tax rainwater, I mean, that is completely nonsense.
Yep, and I mean, for one part, I kind of just feel like, okay, let them continue, because as they're getting more and more ridiculous. And whilst, I think like most activists, I kind of oscillate between great optimistic feelings and very pessimistic feelings. But the truth is that this paradigm shift that we need to really step out of the circle and just, stop arguing about this party and that party and what this country did and what that country did, to step right out the circle and say, this is this floating rock that we live on. This is what it has. This is what we know how to do. And this is how we live. Oh my God, we're ridiculous. Now, this paradigm shift, it's a sudden thing. It could happen anytime. So whilst we feel like we get very desperate when these kind of things happen, we can't believe what people are putting up with, I think there's a positive side. The more ridiculous this gets, the more hope there is in some sense. And especially with these movements, these uprisings, this is the time where the structure diminishes, where the structure of what we believe is natural and normal in our societies. I like to call it like the graphic design of our societies. This superficial idea. Okay, this is the government, and they're there to look after me, and I believe that. And all of these beliefs that we've had. This is the time where we challenge them. Now, what that means is this is the time where people that have really understood that our journey here is about educating each other. This is where we really, really need to activate ourselves, because this is the time where people are open, or slightly more open, to questioning ideas that they didn't have. For example, there is this animosity between Greece and Turkey, which has existed a long time, and which people are taught about at school. And it's very interesting to see protesters in Greece in solidarity with Turkey, and protesters in Turkey in solidarity with Greece, because part of this act is putting a middle finger up at this construction of the enemy, which we've learned. And this is coming with the questioning of many things, and it's happening as well within Turkey with the Kurds, for example. I mean, I've seen, there's been, after these videos I uploaded, I think around 1,500 Turks added me on Facebook and getting in arguments on my profile, and it was very interesting to see, and I remember there was an argument about Kurds, and one of the girls was saying, now I'm questioning this. I always grew up thinking that they were terrorists and they wanted to destroy Turkey. And what I'm seeing now from our authorities killing us on the street, now I'm questioning other things as well. So she was questioning about the Kurdish community. So it's a prime time for us to question things. And those of us that feel that we can help other people to question and give others questions, this is the time we need to activate ourselves more than ever before.
I fully agree. Well said. How you feel this whole, if we can call it awakening? Do you think is that a natural thing, or is that a programmed thing, like you was talking about the architect of the Matrix, or is that something? What do you think is the whole thing? Is that like the 60s, where some people awake and have a lot of hope and a lot of beliefs, or is that something that really will make a big change?
I think like the vocabulary again here is kind of complicated or unhelpful. This idea of being awake or not, as if it was like this binary concept, where in fact it's a process of waking up. And you know, for years and years now, I've been questioning and trying to undo these structures in my mind in relation to everything, in relation to love and friendship, in relation to what I value, what makes me feel good, what I want, all of these things. And it's a process, and I'm still unlearning, because what is installed into us, I mean, every culture is an indoctrination. And part of this evolution has to be coming out of our specific cultures, understanding, and this is something we can understand through the pluralism in language, which is what I try to do with the language courses in language transfer as well, because the courses really take an exploration through the language in this sense. I mean, we see how mixed our languages are, we see how mixed we are, we see how everything belongs to us. We don't have a country. When they tell you you have a country, they tell you, they're not telling you you have a country, they're telling you you don't have a world. And everything belongs to us. And in this sense, we don't have a specific culture to defend. This is what I want to say. We can pick and choose. We can pick and choose. This idea from this culture, I really like it. This idea from my culture, I like it. This idea, I don't like it. There is a wealth of knowledge, and this very modern idea that we belong to certain nationalities, identities, it's a contemporary illness. It's a contemporary mental illness. It's very, very recent. This is not the history of humanity, and it's a very recent thing. So
it's like I say, so something from it's more way more implanted like in the so-called Western world than around the world. I traveled through 40 countries, and like you say, the people, a lot of people, they want the same. They think the same. It's not like that. But you have to know different people around the world to.
I mean, national identities are still a very big problem, because in part they're based on victimization. We have very many national identities. I mean, going back to the problem in Israel and Palestine, and also in Cyprus as well, with the division of Cyprus, we have cultural identities or national identities based on victimization, which are very dangerous. The point that I want to make here is that we need to come out of this indoctrination and to appreciate, and because when we're within this one cultural paradigm, we're working from an axis, that this is the axis, this is a standard for each one of us. Our cultures are the standard, and everything else is a deviation from that. And this comes from the idea that everything doesn't belong to us, that we have a specific identity. Now, when we get rid of that and we explore with a much more open mind, is when we start managing to unlearn all of the unhelpful values and all of the unhelpful so-called knowledge that we're indoctrinated within any one culture. It's a very difficult situation that we're in, but I believe that the first thing that one has to do is to do that for themselves and share this experience with others as much as they can. And it's kind of a time game in many aspects. You know, we're going to do this before the damage that we do to ourselves and the planet is irredeemable, or we will do it afterwards.
Yeah, one or the other. Well, like you say, the unlearn part. I was in a private school, and we had a lot of critical thinking. We learned to think critical, and I think that was a very big chance. When I went out of that school, I lived there for 14 years, so my beginning of my life was like in that school. So we lived it's more a bigger community. And when I went out there and see the system, it never worked for me. So for me, it was like the question mark was since very little. And I just discovered recently what the people are really indoctrinated with.
I mean, I had a very opposite experience, and this is what I really want to share. And I only realized kind of recently that most people that think like this had your kind of experience, where I'm from the opposite end of the spectrum, you know. I mean, I was in a very I mean, I was actually born in the UK with in the diaspora, where all immigrant communities living. We had a huge amount of cultural poverty in this area. I didn't understand anything about the world, or I mean, if I was to see people protesting in the street, I would think, what are these idiots doing? And the complete 360 that learning languages had on me, and going out in the world and beginning to unlearn these values and these ideas that we're talking about, is what really propels me to do the language transfer project, for example, and to share this with people. And something I would say to people like you that grew up with this, or feel like they were never in this system, which is a lot of activists, is to really employ empathy as much as they can, to put themselves in the shoes of the other person, instead of getting frustrated all the time because of this stupidity, essentially going, okay, what is it like, or what would it be like to understand this? Because, okay, the people that are propagating the values that are damaging to us and that are damaging to themselves are also victims of these values. And this is an argument I have a lot, again, about Israel and Palestine, that the Israelis, for example, that are going through military service and indoctrinated with so much hatred, where they can, I mean, there's some really nice projects happening. One is called Breaking the Silence, where people, Israelis that have done military service, are now speaking out about the kind of stuff that they did. Now, the reaction of most people is hatred when they hear about this, and we need to take one step more and see the Israelis, for example, that are committing these acts also as victims of the indoctrination that they've received, because they are victims. It's not good for any human being to be committing these kind of acts. They're also victims of the indoctrination that they've received. So I think that what this mentality does is allows us to step out of this us and them mentality, and it's very important that we empathize, because we have a very natural tendency to divide ourselves, and you see it with the most liberal people and the most active activists as well.
Yeah, I fully agree. That is a very valid point, because what I'm seeing is like a lot of people who see what is going on, they have a lot of difficulty to explain that to people who are fully in. And I always search the best argument to try to give already a doubt, because if the people have a doubt, it's way more easy to expose them things than instead that they reject everything. What I'm saying is, like, I mentioned the so-called awakening part again. If I don't agree with that neither, but it is like what you were saying. I call that universal moral law. That is like what you do to your best friend. If you don't do it to another person, then it is like it gets like something that it is not natural. So what you're doing like to your best friend, and if you do like something bad to your best friend, it's not your best friend anymore. So that is like what I say, that is the universal moral law, what you do to people and how you behave with people, and or to the nature and to life in general. And the awakening part, or at least to awake that kind of a human side, it is it's like a chicken in the egg. It have to break the shell itself. If you break it from the outside, the chicken die.
I think there's something very interesting here, what you said about, having a doubt and working on doubts. I mean, there are many people that don't have a doubt in their mind and about the system and the world we're living in, and it all feels very natural because they haven't known anything else. But there's one thing you could work with, and that's the unhappiness. We're all working very hard to be extremely unhappy. I mean, our happiness as a society, with everything that we have, is declining and declining. So what we can work with to help people to understand these things is their unhappiness. We're evidently not happy. We're not behaving like happy people. So even if people don't have a doubt, drawing their attention to their unhappiness, unhappiness and misery is not a way of life. And I understand what it means to accept it, Like I said, I grew up in England a lot of time, and I thought that this was just a natural way of life, that it was just about slogging it out until you die, and and I didn't know anything else. It was the experience of learning languages and going out into the world, which made me start to challenge this value system. So I'm always, and this is something that is has Egypt very divided. You know, you have Egypt, which is a society with a huge amount of illiteracy, a huge amount of cultural poverty, and then you have these liberal people that are extremely frustrated that other people don't get what they feel is very obvious, and there's always people that don't understand what we feel is very obvious. And this is where empathy comes in, to understand why they feel like this. And even when you're looking at people that are violent and that are propagators of this, we also have to treat them as victims of this. One of the videos that I uploaded as well for Gezi was about trying to get the police on side. It's very easy to hate the police when you know, you have all of this violence on the street, etc. But then if you look at it objectively, you step out of the circle, you realize you have a working class which is abused, i.e. the police, which is in a completely patriarchal system, which the police are terribly abused. I mean, the police that were going to deal with the protests in Turkey, they were sleeping on the street. There was nowhere for them to sleep. They were working like 40 hours, some of them without stopping. They were given awful things to eat. And then you have these two groups which have completely compatible interests fighting each other. And it's very easy to react with hatred. It's very easy for the idea of trying to get members, because they're human beings, of the police to understand this is a utopian idea. And I'm really sick of hearing ACAB, all cops are bastards. I'm sick of it because it is a completely short-sighted view. It's very natural for us to react this way in this violence, and I understand it. You know, I've been in this situation where I've been on the receiving end of this violence and witnessed horrific violence. But we have to keep stepping out the circle and looking at the conditions which create and which promote this violence. And the only way we're going to stop it is in our minds.
We have 10 minutes left. All right, we have an echo.
No, that was the prayer. It's finished now. There was the call to prayer here.
Yeah, and that is exactly the last 10 minutes I want to pass on that. If you're living in a very religious country, how you think from really religious to be able to take your life in your own hand is needed?
I think if there are problems with religion, the problems of religion are exacerbated where resources are scarce. This is the thing. Religion is not anywhere near as problematic as what it appears to be. But when you're living in a society where scarcity is the ruling denominator, it's the ruling idea, and religion is serves as a group to identify yourself with or something to be part of, well, all of these instincts where we want to belong to groups, where we want to feel protected, where our identity is so important, becomes much more important. I mean, it's very interesting living in religious countries. You realize that people have very, very different ideas about the same religion. I mean, they could be completely different religions, but they're not. So my point is that the first port of call is to deal with the practical issues, and that's the ruling paradigm of scarcity. Once we're out of this ruling paradigm, which is totally a management problem, you know, we don't need politicians, we need technicians, we need agriculturalists, we need scientists. Once we get over these fundamental practical issues, these resource issues, then we will see what religion evolves into. But we're living in a paradigm where religion really does have the possibility or the tendency to become something negative, where it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people. They are very religious and they're just living it instead to preach it and make a separation out of it. I think that this is also it can be a way of living. But as soon as it gets in all extreme, humans are very genius to put like the meanings on different stuff, and therefore it is a very dangerous tool. As soon as you have people. And in religion also what we have is like the mass movement, and that is also like something that I observe, that I think we can make things move in little movements. We can move way faster also than creating big movements, and I think that is also like something of the free choice, how we want to create the new ideas for the so-called new world, if we want, is to make it ourselves, but not that we have to wait on other people or that we just have to follow a certain idea. It's really to create our own, and that scares a lot of people. A lot of people, they are so dependent of their government. After the parents, they have the government, and without that, they are completely lost.
Well, religion is fascinating because, I mean, it's a phenomenon that's occurred in all cultures, all over the world, in all time. And what religion shows us is that we have a spiritual need, and spirituality is a funny word in capitalism, which is interesting. We really have a spiritual need that accompanies this consciousness of our existence. We have a lot of questions that need answering. And in my opinion, religion is principally spiritual fraud, which stops us asking these questions and stops us living knowing that there are questions that we can't answer, and they're giving us all of these false answers. And I believe that part of the human experience is to have the intelligence to have all of these questions, and also to have the experience of not knowing. And what this does to the ego of not knowing, having the intelligence to have all of these existential questions that we have, but at the same time appreciating that we don't know. And we have religions telling us that we have all of the answers. And I think this is a dangerous spiritual fruit, which I believe, and I believe that many religions in the world are full of fascinating and beautiful ideas. But I also believe that religion is standardized religions with their sets of truths are something that we will naturally evolve out of once we finish with this material problems. Whilst we're in these material problems and our materials and our economy completely defined by the idea of scarcity, then religion will continue to propagate and become more extreme.
Yeah, definitely. That can almost make a jingle. Religion is a spiritual fraud. It's a good one.
But I don't want to be flippantly degrading of religions either, because, like I said, I believe that religions are full of many wonderful ideas. There are many wonderful ideas.
Well, I personally, I think the people don't. We don't need religions, because it is like a lot of things that people are doing is what they would do also without religion. And
this is very interesting, because in Muslim countries where people ask me about my religion, and they ask me if I believe in God, and I say that I don't know, and I'm okay with not knowing, people are really shocked, and they're like, and they don't understand. They tell me, "But you're good," and I'm like, "Yeah, but why are you good then if it's not because of the fear of God?" And it's like, because being good feels good, and sometimes religion can stop people realizing this. If leading a so-called dignified life or a good life is because of fear of God, I often ask, you don't think God knows that this is why you're behaving this way, because you think he's watching? And I think it can act as a block for people to realize actually being good, cooperating feels much better, gives you a much better human experience on this planet than competing like animals.
Yeah, fully agree. Very well said, and I thank you very much to have to take the time with beside your language transfer project. That is, I put that also on the website. If people click on the Babylon Decoded show, you find also Mihalis and his different links to the YouTube channel. Mihalis, thank you so much for your time and for your ideas. Anytime you want to come on the radio, you have to promote or talk about something, it's your radio. And thanks everybody for listening, and we see us next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Slow down. Everybody just keep reading.